As the guards start affixing manacles to the gnomish inventor, his pleading eyes look in your direction.
Please, I'm innocent. You have to believe me. Check my workshop. Whoever tampered with my things must have left some clues behind.
Hello, and welcome to Tuna's Tales. This week's Pondering Monsters is going to be covering part 2 of the encounter in my last video, where a local inventor's clockwork conductor gets out of hand and turns hostile towards the audience. By the end of that encounter, your party should have agreed to help the inventor in proving that he wasn't at fault for the construct going crazy. So just who framed Mr. Inventor? Well, if the video title didn't give it away, it was a Lich. However, not just any Lich, this is a virtuoso Lich from yet another of Kobold Press's books, The Tome of Beasts 2. This take on the classic magical master of undeath puts an artistic spin on it, and at a much lower CR, it's more accessible for lower level parties. If you're curious about how this is all going to play out, then stick around as we move towards the finale of this concerto. We find ourselves this time not with our heroes, but with the local gnomish inventor some years ago in his youth. It was around this time that his inventions caught the eye of a gorgeous halfling musician. Her songs were his inspiration, and his inventions brought her a joy that only music had given her before. The two were deeply in love, and they quickly married to live a happy life together for better or for worse. Unfortunately, their coin came up worse. A contract that the inventor had taken fell through, and the people he agreed to work for came to collect on what he still owed them. As he had spent his money on supplies for his inventions, he was unable to pay them back with coin, but he made a different deal. Unbeknownst to his wife, he stole some of her sheet music and convinced the debt collectors that they would make more off of regular performances of her music than what he could ever give them. With the debt paid, things were fine, but only momentarily, as the inventor's wife eventually learned of his theft and left him in a rage. The love of his life was gone, and with her, his inspiration for inventing. To make matters worse, the debt collectors came calling again, but this time they wanted the musician. The person they hired to perform the musician's music was refusing to perform, so the debt collectors decided their best option was to go to the source. Naturally, the inventor still cared deeply for his ex-wife and wasn't about to betray her again, but magic can be very coercive. It didn't take long for the thugs to darken the musician's doorstep, saying that the inventor pointed them towards her. She refused to go with them and put up a struggle. In the end, she lost her life, but as any good performer knows, the show must go on. With the fire of revenge for robbing her of her music and her life coursing through her veins, the musician resurrected as an artful being of undeath, hell's-bent on continuing her symphony. Over the years, she worked in the shadows, plotting her revenge against the inventor. Eventually, she came to learn that her ex-husband was trying to create a machine that could mimic her music. Her thoughts turned to the idea of him profiting off of her work, and she saw her opening. Come his big reveal, she would frame him and get him sentenced to death, just like she had been by his work all those years earlier.
That's so tragic, but it's a little confusing. Is there time for some questions?
Of course. Let's see what we can clear up.
So it was this virtuoso Lich that sabotaged the inventor?
That it was. It was all part of her revenge plot.
And she wanted revenge because she was betrayed?
Basically, yeah. She heard that the inventor was working on a construct that could perform and maybe even make more music in her style. She couldn't have any of that, so she came up with a plan to discredit and punish the inventor.
How did she see her plan playing out then?
Well, she planned on tampering with the construct so that she can control it. The inventor would then get arrested after his invention attacks the audience at his demonstration, and eventually be locked up for life, shunned by the public, and unable to invent.
But the party stopped all that.
To a point. The Lich still tampered with the construct and got the inventor accused, but she didn't count on the party stepping in to clear his name.
So where does the party come into this encounter?
What do you mean?
Well, that summary didn't involve any player characters.
Ah, I get what you're getting at. The party comes in when it's time to investigate.
And how do they go about doing that?
Well, we'll need to build a mystery around all this that leads to the party uncovering the virtuoso Lich.
Is this where that 3-clue rule you've mentioned before comes in?
Yes. If you want a more in-depth breakdown of it, then check out the Alexandrians video that I've linked in the description to get a better idea of what he's talking about. I've used this method in my games before, though, and it's made running mysteries really easy.
Care to share?
Of course. What it boils down to specifically is that 3-clue rule. For every conclusion you want your party to reach, you should have at least 3 clues that they can find.
Why 3?
To help make sure that the players don't get stopped by not finding what they need. 1 clue can point them in the right direction, a 2nd clue can confirm or correct what they suspect, and the 3rd clue is there as a failsafe if they miss one of the others.
And once we have our clues, how does the party find them?
By playing the game, of course. If they start looking around places and asking questions of people, eventually they should come across their first clue, and then the game is afoot.
Then once the party finds all the clues, they can clear the inventor's name, right?
Yep,
But what about the Lich? Isn't she still around?
she is, and honestly, she's rather unhappy with having her plan foiled.
So what does the party need to do then?
Well, they have at least two options here. The most straightforward one is that they have to fight the Lich, but that's also not necessarily the most interesting one. If you set things up right in advance, then you can reveal some info to the party that will allow them to learn that everything that's going on is actually just a misunderstanding.
Wait, a misunderstanding?
Well, in the summary, I mentioned how the Lich assumed that the inventor was trying to make money off of her old music, but that's not what he was doing at all. He just wanted to hear the love of his life's music again, and money was the furthest thing from his mind when it came to all of this.
Oh, that's even more tragic.
I know. Plus, if you plant things right, then your party will also have the opportunity to try and reason with the Lich. If they do well enough there, then they can reunite the couple.
Oh, the Lich's lover. Now I get it.
Hey, there you go. Any other questions for me, Red, or are you ready to break down how this mystery works out?
Ooh, mystery, mystery.
Then let's start putting this together. First off, investigations are most likely going to involve a lot of skill checks and roleplay. If you want to make things a little easier on yourself, then set a general DC for each clue and scale it up or down depending on how the party goes about trying to find the clue. A good starting point would be around a DC 13 or 14 for most checks. Additionally, if you have anyone in particular that you want the party to talk to, then it can also be helpful to flesh out their character a little bit. Things like, what is their relationship to the inventor, if they were approached by the Lich at any point, and how they would know this information are all good things to get you started thinking. Otherwise, when it comes to combining this encounter and the last one together, we'll first need to know what the final conclusions are that we want the party to reach. In this case, I'll be using the inventor was framed, the person who framed him is someone he knew from his past, and the person from his past is his previously thought dead ex-wife. If the party figures these out, they can go and confront the virtuoso Lich in some fashion, be it combat or just talking to clear up the misunderstanding. But with those conclusions stated, we now need to come up with 3 clues for each of them, as that's how the 3-clue rule works. Those last 2 conclusions are very closely related, but that's okay. It'll help in a similar way to the 3-clue rule. Let's look at the inventor was framed conclusion first. Some clues that can point to foul play here could be lockpick marks on the inventor's workshop door, a set of parts that the inventor doesn't remember ordering, and something is inside the construct that the inventor didn't put there. This, of course, all requires that the party go to the inventor's workshop to find these clues. Getting them there should be pretty easy since it would logically make sense to start where the construct was created, but if that's not the case, then you have a couple options. The inventor can ask them to look around his shop, as there has to be something there that proves that the construct was tampered with. Or, if the inventor is released into the party's custody during their investigation, then he can suggest that they check the workshop. You could also have anyone you think would make sense point the party in that direction. Once they get there, they can begin looking around. As you try the workshop door, it appears to be locked. You get out your lockpick set and get to work, but you quickly notice that this lock has been tampered with before. Like someone much less skilled than you has already picked this door open. The lockpick marks means that someone broke into his workshop, and that should be enough to clue the party in, but we still have the other clues just in case. If they miss the lockpick marks on their way into the workshop, then they have the chance to find the odd parts laying around in some fashion. As you all begin looking around, you notice, tucked away in a corner, a small sack of parts that doesn't seem to match the quality or style of the other parts in this workshop. You grab one and make a note to ask the inventor about it later. If they don't pick up on the mismatched parts, then they can come across the guards and the inventor looking at the inside of the construct the next time they see him. When they do this, you can have them roll to observe the construct and find the very carefully hidden thing that was added to it. For this, the thing I have in mind here is a piece of sheet music. Also, leaning into the tragic romance of the inventor and the musician, we can say that the inventor recognizes it as the first piece of music his ex-wife ever made for him. Upon seeing it, he can call out that he thought he'd lost this years ago and has no idea why it's in this construct. If you still need yet another clue, then you could have one of the inventor's neighbors be available to tell the party that they saw someone strange leaving the inventor's house the other day. This can also be a clue to get the party to another location so that they can find, you guessed it, more clues. Afterwards, your party should have enough bits to piece together this first conclusion. By the way, that third clue is also something that can be used as a clue for either of the other conclusions, sort of a double dip there. Speaking of those other conclusions as well, I'll leave it up to you all to come up with clues that fit them, since this video is starting to get a little long and we still have to cover what your party can do when they find the Lich. By this point, your party should have pieced together the clues and reached as many conclusions as you feel is necessary. They can now present their findings to the guards and the Inventor to clear his name. If they do this, though, then the Inventor can confirm the final two conclusions of someone from his past and that someone being his ex-wife. But in doing so, we'll call out that she died and he doesn't know how it could be her. From here, the Inventor should be allowed to go free, but will spill his past history of selling off his wife's music, her leaving him, being magically forced to give away her location, and finally, him trying to recreate her music so that he could hear it one last time. If the party doesn't want to pursue this potential new mystery, then the Inventor, or the guards who are looking for someone to charge for the crime, can ask for help in tracking down the exact person who did this. This does not need to be another complete mystery and can be pretty straightforward when it comes to tracking her down. If you want it to be really simple, then you can say that she's been living and hiding out in the same place all these years. It was condemned some time ago, and she's been staying under the radar. Or, if you wanted to make a dungeon out of the place that she's been living in, you can do that too. Either way, when the party meets her, they have two options. Your party can choose to fight her since she is technically an evil lich, but if they wanted to try to work things out, then they can attempt to explain everything that they've learned from the Inventor and try to persuade her to make amends. If you really wanted to maintain the tragedy of this narrative, then you could even say that forgiving the Inventor makes her pass on, as the fire of revenge is what was keeping her here. This can lead to a scene where the two past lovers meet again, say what they have to say, and the musician then fades from life. As the former couple see each other face to face for the first time in several decades, you can all tell that their love for each other hasn't waned in the slightest. They say their apologies and spend the next several hours catching up on their time apart. But eventually, the two say their goodbyes, and they hold each other as the musician slowly turns to ash. If your party isn't big on the romantic tragedy though, then you can always say that the musician, who's still a lich, and the Inventor get back together and live happily ever after. Of course, if your party chooses violence, then they'll need to fight a CR12 creature with legendary actions, lair actions, and the ability to cast up to 6th level spells. This is a fairly deadly encounter, but the action economy should be on their side with this one. If you still aren't comfortable with that though, then you can always add in some of the town guards to help the party out. Give them the use of a veteran or two, and they should stand a better chance. If, however, you want to impress your party and set things up in advance, then you could say that the sheet music found in the construct is actually the Virtuoso Lich's phylactery. This means that if your party has it in their possession and makes the connection, then they can try to use that to weaken the Lich in combat. If it comes to that, let them get creative and, as I like to say, have fun with it. Once the dust settles, you can proceed to wrap things up however you see fit. Scaling on this isn't too bad. For a 10th level party, this turns into a medium encounter, and then turns easy for a 15th level party. You can make things more difficult by giving the Lich some minions easily enough. The creature also has Dominate Person, so I'd say they could have at most 2 other creatures of no more than CR4 there to help them. They are also a Lich, so having a couple undead around would be on brand. Or you could use more of the animated quartets to keep with the musical theme. If you don't want to go the minion route though, then your next best option is to wear the party down by making the Lich's hideout a dungeon of sorts. Throw enough stuff at them beforehand, and any boss fight gets more difficult. And there we have our tragic tale of a lover scorned and musician turned pale. If you're looking for a little shake-up from your normal style of adventure and want to try out a new tool in your GM belt, then this mystery might just be what you're looking for. But if it isn't, then maybe you're looking for other adventure ideas, NPCs, and more. If that's the case, then check out my Patreon where you can find all sorts of stuff related to the adventures I've created here. But of course, if you have any questions on this encounter, then feel free to ask them in the comments down below, and I'd be happy to answer them. With that though, thanks for letting me talk to you all, and until next time, keep pondering.